Daf of Likkutei Torah Vayikra. We're in the middle of a mimer about the spiritual meaning of salt. So now, Ois Vav, halfway down the first column of Daf Vav. So now, the pasuk first says that the mincha offerings, the flour offerings, need to have salt with them, and then it continues that actually all carbonists need to have salt with them. So the flour offering represents Torah because chita, which is wheat, has numerical value, the bigmantrיא of 22, which is the 22 letters with which Torah is made up and Torah is written. And you need to add salt to that, which is the spiritual side in the Yerushalayim. This is the meaning of the statement of Pirkei Avos that pas b'melachtechel, that you have to eat your bread with salt. Simply, it's saying to live that when you want to focus on Torah, don't focus on accumulating material wealth. So it says just eat bread with salt and just plain water and sleep on the ground, etc. Just have nothing. But al pi Chassidus, what it means is that the learning of nigla, the revealed parts of Torah, which is compared to bread, it should be with salt. Which is the Agada and the Psukim, which give Yerushalayim and the holiness to the Torah. And then it continues that about drinking water with to measure in a limited way. Now, what's this drinking of water? Because salt causes thirst. What does it mean spiritually? That through learning these Agada and Pnimis Torah and Tanakh, so it gives one a thirst to Hashem. With a deep love and yearning for Hashem, and then the water is what quenches that thirst. Like it says that if someone has a strong rotzah, if someone has a passionate desire for Hashem, imratz libcha, then shuv, return back, lachar, either backwards or le'echad, back to the one Hashem. In other words, if you have a strong passion to jump out of this world, come back and do what your job is in this world. Now, that is the salt after the flour offering, which represents Torah. Then there's the carbonus. The carbonus are about refining the animal soul, and the animal comes from the blood within the heart. In other words, animal meaning the animalistic desires. It's about the blood, which is the midas, the emotional attributes of the animal soul, the nefesh bahamis, and we have to transform them. And in order to do that, we need salt. Salt has a sharp taste, so it comes from, like we said earlier in the Maimah, from Gevura within Chachma. And like we said earlier in the Maimah, that in Chachma, that's where refinement happens. In other words, when the emotions, the midas, go crazy, so once we're able to put it in perspective and in intellectually, so that is what refines them. And that's why in Amaretz, ignoramus shouldn't eat meat, because he is unable to refine the meat, and therefore he shouldn't eat the meat. It will just add to his animalistic desires. And the Gevura, which we said that salt it spiritually represents Gevura within Chachma. So now that is that Gevura, that severity is like the idea that it says that you should get your Yetzer Tov angry at your Yetzer Hara, your positive inclination angry at your negative inclination. And now in Gemara, Mנחteh, it says in the pasuk melach Tmlach that you should season it with salt. The Gemara says that yachol tavei nehu. I might have thought that you should fill it with so much salt, like the way understanding fills a person. So Rashi says there, maybe I would have thought that you should give it a flavor like understanding, which fixes and holds holds together the person. So the idea is that the understanding that that fixes and holds together the person, that is the godly soul, because bina, understanding, is made up of two words, ben yudkei. Yudkei is the first two letters of Hashem's name, and ben, that we're a son, we're a child of Hashem. And therefore, I might have thought that the only way to bring up animal sacrifice represents the animal soul, and the only way to bring it up as a carbon to Hashem is if we're able to transform it with total self-nullification, that the Nefesh Kiss has, that the godly soul, all it wants is to be part of Hashem, and that's the only path forward for the animal soul. But this is very difficult because the godly soul is part of Hashem. And therefore, it has this natural self-nullification that it just wants to become one and nullified to Hashem, and pour itself out and go back to its father, to Hashem. On the other hand, the animal soul comes from klippa, which is where godliness is concealed, and therefore doesn't have this natural inclination. And this is what it teaches us from the pasuk b'melach tmlach, that it doesn't have to be full of bitul, but it just has to have at least a bit of salt, representing some level of bitul, of self-nullification. That at least bitul yesh, which acknowledges that everything that Hashem, that what am I? I am Hashem, but not that not the self-nullification to the extent that I don't exist. I exist, but I am really godliness, one with Hashem. And this is the difference between the oneness and the commitment achieved when we say Hashem echad versus b'chol nafshecha, like we explained earlier in the moment, that Hashem echad is the oneness and commitment of the godly soul, whereas b'chol nafshecha, with all our souls, the commitment of the animal soul. Now, the top of the second column. Now, the Ramban explains about on the pasuk about that carbonus all need salt, that salt is a mix of fire and water, because salt comes from heating sea water, and from that you get sea salt. And so therefore it has both powers, the power to preserve and the power to destroy. Like we see with Sodom, that when the city of Sodom was destroyed, it says that Gofris for Melech Sreifach, so that the whole Sodom was destroyed with sulfur and salt, and nothing could be planted. Now, Rabbeinu Bachya adds on that pasuk that the conduct of the world is always a mix between chesed and gvura, kindness and severity. And like Zohar says, with the fire, that you have that it both lights up and it consumes, and that's like a tcheles. That tcheles, which is the special blue, that also has both of these elements, that it protects as well as consumes. And the word tichla is about getting rid of and consuming. And on one hand, the wicked needs to be, and what conceals godliness needs to be removed, whereas what is one with Hashem, you who are one with Hashem, are all alive today. That we all have in our nefesh, in our godly soul, this commitment and self-nullification for Hashem, to give ourselves up for Hashem, and therefore that's the positive that needs to be preserved and strengthened. And like it says that the sun can also do both things, that the sun on one hand heals when there's a very powerful sun. It says when in the future, with Mashiach, Hashem will take out the sun from its sheath, and then the sun will be very powerful, and the righteous will be healed through it, whereas the wicked will be singed through this the sun too hot. So this aspect comes from Gevura and Gevura Sta'aba, the Gevura of Chachma, like salt. And therefore, salt has both aspects. On one hand, Torah strengthens. It strengthens the godly soul. On the other hand, it weakens the animal soul. And that is through the element of the refinement that Torah has, that the chachma, it says the chachma is biruur, that in chachma, that's where refining happens. So it refines the animal soul, separating the good from the bad, and thus weakening its passion. And now the word shamayim, heavens, is also made up of the two words eish and mayim, fire and water. And they are the water represents the positive side and the preserving, whereas fire represents the getting rid of. And this applies both with that in the heavens. There's Hashemayim Kisi. We go on one hand, we look at the heavens as Hashem's place and the place of holiness and of Torah. On the other hand, there's the heavens of Klippa. And that's mentioned in the Teichach on the curses about the heaven becoming like copper, and that's the heaven that the pasuk talks about. Ka'ashan nimlecho, that's smoking, and that has to be destroyed. That's the klippa, which the salt destroys the evil, and actually the word lahakriv, to offer, to become close or to offer a sacrifice, is the same letters as laharkiv, to rot. So we have both elements, on one hand coming close, on the other hand rotting and getting rid of. So salt has both of these qualities. And we see a similar concept regarding Amalek. It says in the end of Kiseitze about Timchas Zecher Amalek, to get rid of the memory of Amalek, mitachas hashemayim, from under the heavens. So this under the heavens represents the lower heavens, where there is where we are and where there is evil, whereas Hashem is beyond the heavens. That's the pure holy heavens. And so salt, on one hand, it preserves and strengthens, and that's through giving a good flavor, and that's what it does for the nefesh elokis, the godly soul. And also it transforms the good within the animal soul so that it's able to also be elevated and become part of holiness. And that's the idea of adding salts to all the animal sacrifices. And we'll explain later that the word melach, the verb melach, besides to salt something, also means to mix or to turn over. And therefore, the idea of have melach on the sacrifices also means to transform them from animalistic in a negative way to holiness. Okay, Zayin. And this also explains how the spiritual meaning of how Elisha cured the poisonous water of Yericho, and it says that he did this through salt. Salt makes what is bitter into tasty, and this idea of the poisonous water relates to on the second day of creation, where it talks about how Hashem separated between the higher waters and the lower waters, and then from the lower waters, eventually part of it, the rubbish within within the lower waters became cursed and poisonous waters, and the lower waters still have a way to be elevated, and like Rashi says here, that they're used on the mizbeach, both the salt which comes from the water as well as the water itself, which is used in nisach hamayim, the pouring of the water on sukkahs, and that elevates the lower waters to become part of the fresh, healthy water. And similarly, within us, that we all have the aspect of poison and bitter waters within us, within our animal soul, and that is the part of us which is just fixated on indulging in physical pleasures, and that's the bitter part of us. But then through adding salt, which is the Torah, so then we can refine that, and that even out the lower part of us, which comes from the below the heavens, which separate between the high waters and the low waters, that too can be refined over the page. That's why salt is called bris elikecha, the covenant of your God, because it uses specifically the name elikecha, elikim, which is the name of severity and justice, and you can spell elikim as 5 letters, and therefore there's 120 combinations, because 1 letter you have 1 combination, then 2 letters you have 2 combinations, then 3 letters you have 6 combinations, 1 times 2 times 3. 4 letters you have 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 combinations, 24 combinations, and then with 5 letters you 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5, 120 combinations, and they're both 120 combinations on the side of holiness. And there's also within Klippas Noga, within where the physical world, where Hashem's presence is covered, also 120 combinations. Altogether, there's 240 combinations, which is the numerical value of mar, meaning bitter, or also amalek is also the numerical value 240. And salt is what sweetens this, through revealing the holy part, gvura, the holy severity. So, and which cuts off all evil. So then it fixes up the bitterness of the bitterness of klippa. Now, the word melach, salt, is the numerical value of 78, which is 3 times Hashem's name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, and therefore it fixes up Elikim, which is the name related to concealment and severity. And therefore it says about Aaron, bris melech olam, that there's this eternal covenant of the salt, that the Aaron will and his family will be the priest of the Kohanim forever, because Kohanim are related to this idea of 3 times Hashem's name Havaya, and to salt, because the Kohanim bless the people with 3 brachas. Each one says Hashem's name in it once: Yivarechacha, Yoer, and Yisa. And therefore, that's the numerical value of 78, which represents, the number 78 represents a godly energy beyond Hishalshalos, beyond the chain of worlds. And therefore, it's related to salt, which is about preserving an eternity. And yes, salt has an aspect of Gevura, but these blessings of Birchos Kohanim also have an aspect of Gevura, like it explains regarding Shishim Gebayim in Medrash Rabbah on Nasai. Now, this covenant of the salt is what rectifies and elevates Shem Elikim to Shem Havaya. Like we see that it's bris elikecha, the covenant of Elikim, but it is the numerical value. Melach, salt, is the numerical value of 3 times Hashem's name Havaya. Now, the word salt has the same letters as cholam and mechal. So cholam is the vowel which has a dot on top of the letter, which represents elevating the letter upward, where malchus is elevating towards and beyond the other spheres. And this is also this is explained further regarding why the prayer of a business person has something greater than the prayer of the one who's learning Torah the whole week, because since he's involved in the outer worlds, this creates a greater thirst, and this is like malchus going up beyond the other spheres. And this also relates to mechal, which is forgiveness, the forgiveness and which is both on Yom Kippur and also through the carbonus, which come to atone. Also, this word Chalom, ches lamed mem, means strength, strengthening, as we see in a number of psukim, both in Iyov and Yeshaya, and also even with one of the stones of the Choshen, the Achlama, that the Rabbeinu Bachya explains it that way, that it strengthens the heart. And so this is all related to salt, which is the same letters as ches lamed mem, that also strengthens and keeps and preserves, and thereby that even within this world where we're only at a state of yichud tata, the lower level of unification, where the world is real, at most we can say that this world is powered by Hashem. It links that with yichud Allah, where there is only Hashem, and therefore elevates our physical world as well. Ches. Now we can go back to explain why matzah is eaten at the Seder plain without any salt, even though normally we always dip our bread, our challah, our matzah into salt, but not at the Seder. So based on what we've explained, we can answer this question, because matzah by itself, yes, it's bland, it's simple. Now that seemingly salt adds something, because as we've been explaining how salt by itself is no good, but salt with other food, it makes it more tasty, and spiritually as well, it rectifies. So why no salt? So explanation is because the matzah we want to eat at the Seder, we want it to be simple. It's meant to be lechem oni, the bread of poverty. And that broken piece of matzah, the Seder is said specifically on a broken piece, a humble piece, it shouldn't have salt. So it says until it's whole. And the explanation is, the commentaries on Zayah explain that the matzah, as it is at the Seder, it's like the letter Dalet. Dalet means dalus, it means poverty, and that's the bread of the poor man's bread. And then once we add a vav to the Dalet, when you add a small vav to a Dalet, that's the third leg. And then now instead of a Dalet, you have a hey, and then you can add salt. Let's explain this a little more. The poor man's bread represents the simple and the lowest level, being the recipient and being humble and not having anything of one's own. That's like the moon that only receives from the sun. It doesn't have any of its own light. And only through receiving from the sun does the moon leave its state of impoverishedness. And that also gives it its das, before it receives from the sun, it's oni bedas, it's poor in das, in its intellectual state as well. And then it receives this from the son of Shemesh Havai, the son of Hashem, the light of Hashem. Now, in Zohar and Rai Mahemnet says that Ha'ashir, the rich person, that is the middle pillar. The middle pillar is Das and Tiferes. So that's rich. What is poor? Poor is Malchus. Malchus is just simple faith, which at the Seder, it's the bread of faith as well. And we have to start off with faith without embellishments. And like Habakkuk said, that the essence of everything, that is the one thing around which the whole Yiddishkeit revolves, is with tzaddik v'manasa yichya, the righteous with his faith will live. And like the pasuk says in Yeshaya, open up for the nation of shomer munim, who guard their faith. Then afterwards, once we develop our emunah, our simple faith, then you can add das, you can add understanding, and especially pnimius Torah, which when we understand pnimius Torah, the inner parts of Torah, that adds to our relationship and excitement and cleaving to Hashem. But you have to start off with simple faith, and that's the meaning of what Chazal say, that whoever fulfills Torah from poverty will end up fulfilling Torah from wealth. poverty is simple emunah, and then eventually we'll be with wealth from an understanding and a closeness to Hashem. Like Medrash Shmuel says on Pirkei Avos, that when it says if you fulfill Torah from poverty, that means intellectual poverty, and then from wealth is intellectual wealth. And over to the fourth column, this is the meaning of what Pirkei Avos says, that imein yira ein chachma, that without reverence of Hashem, there's no wisdom, and without wisdom, there's no reverence. So then where do you start? You can't have reverence without wisdom, and can't have wisdom without reverence. You can never get anywhere. Explanation is that there's two levels of yira. There's two levels of reverence. There's the first level of reverence, which comes before chachma, and then and that's the gateway, the pathway in. Without that, you have nothing. But then through chachma, through understanding of Hashem, then we can get to the higher level of yira, where we're not impoverished, and we're not at risk of veering off the path, and this is the meaning of the statement that Yisrael, that poverty is good for the Jewish people. What does that mean? That when we have just simple humility and faith, like someone who's intellectually poor, so that's actually good for us. And like it says in Parakut Ches of Tanya, that we're all fools compared to Hashem, and ultimately our relation with Hashem is beyond understanding. It's just this is who we are, and that's it. And therefore, when there's a test of faith, we'll give up our life for it. And like the Gemara says in Chulin on the pasuk Adam of Ahema Teshia Havaya, so that there's people that might be very cunning and wise, but then when they make themselves simple like an animal with a broken heart and simple faith, so then Hashem says that then they're special to Hashem. And like it says in Medrash, that Hashem says that if they're just moaning like a dove, that means that they do whatever I tell them to. They just have this simple obedience, Kabbalah soul. So when we start off eating matzah at the Seder, it has to be with this simple obedience and simple faith, and with this skafia, just subduing the bad without understanding. And if we don't add salt, salt would be adding flavor and understanding and being up to it spiritually. But we have to start off with simple obedience and faith, and which is why we count by the moon, which represents being the simple receiver without its own light. But then afterwards, once we develop that faith, now we have to insert das into it, an understanding of Hashem and the closest to Hashem. And then the dalud becomes a hey. Okay, next ice test. The pasuk says about Aaron, bris melach olam hu. It says that he has this eternal covenant of salt, and then it says the way it's written in the Torah is hu, hey vav aleph, but the way it's pronounced is he. So what's the role of Aaron? Aaron is the one, the unterfir, the one who takes the bride to the wedding, and then Moshe is the one who, so to speak, is taking the groom to the wedding. Hashem is the groom, and the Jewish people are the bride, and Aaron brings us close to Hashem. And he connects us with Hashem. That's the idea of karbonos, which carbon means to bring close, and keteris means to knot together, tie together. And that's also the meaning of melach. Melach, besides meaning salt, also means to mix together. As we have in a few sources, we have about the keteris that they're memulach, that it's all mixed and blended nicely, and so the idea of bris melach is that Aaron mixes, he brings together the worlds together with Hashem, who's unlimited and totally beyond. And and that's the idea that the Kohen, when he'd bring the carbon, he would go up the ramp and then go around the corners till he would get to Ma'arav, is the western corner. But Ma'arav also means to mix, because he mixes the world and Hashem all together, that there shouldn't be any separation. So the way the pasuk is written is Bris Melech Olam Hu, it says Hu, whereas the way it's pronounced is he, because Hu represents concealment. It's Hu is the third person, and it's always used for something which is aloof and removed. But as it comes down into our reality, which is the way the Torah is read, the decree, so there's more revelation, and then therefore it says he. And now with Keteres, it says that it's all mixed together, and like we explained, that the Keteres mixed together, Hashem and us, that bring us all together as one. And related to this, it says B'yom Chasunasei Zeh Matan Torah. So normally we translate it B'yom Chasunasei, the wedding day is Matan Torah, but this word Chasunasei can also mean mixing, like we see in Targum Yonasan in Parashas Eikev. So based on this, the Chasunasei, which is the giving of the Torah, was also about mixing together the world and Hashem. Like the Medrash says, that although the heavens is normally Hashem's and the earth is ours, but when Hashem gave the Torah, he annulled this decree, and he said that now the lower ones are able to go up and the higher ones are able to come down, and I will start off by going down into the world and descend onto Mount Sinai, Har Sinai, and then Moshe is told, go up to Hashem. So Moshe goes up, Hashem goes down. And so this idea of the descent and ascent, Hashem coming down to us and us going up to Hashem, is that normally there's a sovev and mamale, Hashem's light beyond worlds and Hashem's light within the worlds. And when they come together, Hashem's light beyond worlds in the world, so then that is the unification and the mixing together of heaven and earth, which is the idea of Bris Melech, a covenant that mixes us together with Hashem. Now, when do we eat matzah? On the first night of Pesach. The first night of Pesach is called Leil Shimurim, the night which is guarded. Now, this word shomer, shimurim, guarding, is feminine. Zachar, remembering, is masculine, is the active, is the mitzvah saseh, whereas shomer is the mitzvah leisaseh, the negative, which is, in other words, staying safeguarding from negative and protecting, which is malchus. And malchus waits, which is also part of shomer. It waits and it hopes for when will it be given by the mashpia, so it's able to receive. And it's like the moon, or like the pauper who's just waiting for a gift from the donor or from the sun over to the beginning of Zion. Like we explained elsewhere, the difference between Zachar and Shomer. So night is a time of darkness and concealment, and we're hoping, which is Mamale, where there's only a limited godly energy, and we're hoping for the beyond light, the Sovev light. And this is the idea of Shimurim, where we're in plural, that the Mashpia and Makabel, the giver and the receiver, the donor and the receiver, connect. So matzah on this night is with simplicity and with humility, and therefore it's without salt, like the poor man who's hoping to be given a donation. And which person represents Malchus? So David HaMelech represents Malchus, and like he would say about himself, Ki ani ve'avianani, I'm a poor and destitute. And so this is the feminine matzah when she is single and she's alone, and then so then when it elevates and it connects to, it finds a partner, the feminine and masculine connect. So then we've got the matzah now has a vav. This added vav makes matzah into mitzvah. So this is what Zaya says. And so the matzah that we start off with is waiting to receive a light from beyond worlds, and therefore we don't add salt because it's just with simple humility. But then once it has salt, that's when it has already received this light from beyond. And this is why it mentions this covenant of salt, both about Aaron and about David. So, and when did he have this salt added? After he became king, Hashem lifted him, and Hashem gave him light from beyond, godly light from beyond the world. And that's the idea of Arim Mimcha like Melech. But David, as he is naturally, the way he starts off, that's Malchus, which as it is below, not like the Cholam where the dot is above the letter, but it starts off below the letters and without salt. And the same thing with, and that's also why with Carbonus, it's specifically with salt, because we want to bond to Hashem and to receive from Hashem as he is beyond worlds. Final Eis Yud. Now, the seafarers are called malachim. Why is that? Because they use oars to move in the water. The pasuk says, "Kayam Hashem hanoisin bayam derech." So says Hashem, who gives a path through the sea. So the sea represents Alma Discasia, the hidden worlds which are beyond us spiritually. And then Hashem gives a path for neshamas, for souls to be able to elevate there to a godly level beyond what we can take within this world. And what helps us get there? This is the boats, which are the garments of Torah mitzvahs that allow us to elevate beyond the worlds of Biyah. And for the worlds of Bria Terasiya. And like it explains in Bior Isaiah, that there are some neshamas that are called the fish of the sea. And that's like Moshe, who it says that Moshe came from beyond the world and he was pulled out of the water. So it's from the sea beyond the dry land. It's normally hidden and beyond us. Whereas the regular souls from the worlds of Biyah, they come from the dry lands and they're not able to elevate naturally into the sea. They're not really from beyond the world, only through mitzvahs. That's the way, that's their boats to allow them to elevate beyond the world. Another interpretation of this pasuk, Hanois and Bayam, derech, that who gives a path through the sea. Another interpretation is that this is Malchus, which gives a path that it receives light from the highest spheres. Malchus is the recipient that receives from Yesod, which is the giver, and Yesod gives to it from the highest spheres, including from intellect, from Chabad. Which in Chachma, that's where Chachma is what receives from the subconscious that has Hashem's Hashem's unlimited light in it. Now, this explains the Medrash. The Medrash says on the pasuk, Achrei Hashem Elokeichem telechu, that you should follow after Hashem. How can a person follow after Hashem? Hashem is totally beyond. Hashem, it says about Hashem, by Yom Darkech, his way is in the sea. So how can we follow Hashem? So the Medrash says that just as Hashem planted a garden in Eden, so too you plant a garden. So what's the meaning of this Medrash, and how can we be like Hashem? What are we meant to do? So what the meaning is that Torah is called Eitzah, the tree of life, and Torah is called the garden. Like Gan is the numerical value of 53, and there are 53 parashas in the Torah, and the mitzvahs are the trees of the garden and the orchard. And when we do Torah mitzvahs, so then we are following after Hashem. And it says about Hashem that is in the sea is his way. So we're also able to go into the sea, in other words, beyond. Now, in order to get through the raging waves of the sea, which represents Gevurah, so we need to have the sailors that keep the boat on track. And this is hinted in what it says in Yerushalmi, that when is the time that we can go in the sea? This is from Shavuos until Sukkot. In other words, after Sukkot, then it gets towards the winter season, etc. Best time in the sea is from Shavuos to Sukkot. So what does it mean spiritually? Shavuos is the time where the Torah is given, and then we're able to, the Torah being given, so now we're able to elevate into the sea, meaning that now our mitzvahs we have a kavana, we have intention, and we understand what the mitzvahs are about, and we've accepted the Kabbalah, so we've accepted Hashem's yoke, and now once we've accepted Hashem's yoke in general, then we're able to accept his yoke of mitzvahs. And then we can bring down this sea, this godly light from beyond onto us. It says that Tcheles reminds us, the blue wall, it reminds us of the sea, and the sea reminds us of the sky. The sky reminds of the Kisei HaKavod, right? And the Beis HaMikdash was blue, which is all this idea. And this is also related to why we say Shema from when you can see, the Mishnah Bracha says, when you can see between white and Tcheles. So this gives us the path. In other words, that Shema is when we say that Hashem is one, and that's it. We're totally committed to Hashem, and then that allows us to have this path to rise beyond the regular godly light that's able to be revealed in the world. This is with the help of the sailors, which, like we explained, that they're called malachim because they mix around with their oars, they turn the water around. And what they're doing is to allow the light of Hashem from beyond the world to come into the world and allow us to come up to Hashem, even if it's really not our natural state and beyond us. But still at this level, there's still two different realms, and there's a sea and there's covering. Then there's a whole nother level of kriyas yamsuf, the splitting of the sea, and now there's no more sea anymore, there's no more concealment anymore, and you don't need boats. It's just all smooth. And this is when there's a light of Hashem from totally beyond worlds and beyond spheres, the light of Keser, the crown, and that transforms the sea into dry land. Now there's no problem anymore. There's no separation between the person and the sea of Chachma. And like what Moshe needed a mask, but once we get to this level of Kriyas Yamsuf, there's no need for garments and coverings, because we'll be close with Hashem naturally. And this is also the two stages on Pesach. It says that for 6 days eat matzah, and then the 7th day will be atzeres Hashem Matzah. So now on the first night of Pesach, we're eating matzah without a vav. Then 6 days eat matzah with a vav, meaning that now there's a revelation of Hashem, and there's the understanding of Hashem, learning Pnimis HaTorah, developing Yiras Shamayim, not just the basic Kabbalah soul, the basic acceptance of the yoke. Then on the 7th day, we reach a higher level where the sea splits. So it's not that we're able to get through the sea, through the garments of our mitzvahs, but there's no sea anymore. And that is the ultimate of Pesach and the richest matzah that of Pesach, where it's not that we get beyond in order to connect to Hashem, but in our natural state, there's ultimate and unlimited godly revelation. Okay, and so this concludes the Maimer, and this is the goal of the salt and the Pnimis HaTorah, to lift us to this state where our natural sense is the godly, and this will be the way it is with Mashiach.